Velthar stepped through the airlock and into the research station. His four legs clicked softly against the metal floor. The air tasted different here. It was thinner than what his people breathed on their homeworld. His antennae twitched as they picked up the various scents of different species living together in this small place among the stars. He was nervous. This was his first assignment as a diplomatic attaché for the Quilarian Coalition. His people were known across the galaxy for their peaceful nature and their ability to sense emotions. They were teachers, philosophers, and mediators. They did not fight wars. They talked through problems. That was the civilized way. The station orbited a beautiful nebula. Through the large windows, Velthar could see clouds of purple and blue gas swirling in the darkness of space. Scientists from many different species came here to study the strange phenomena inside the nebula. It was supposed to be a place of learning and cooperation. But Velthar was here for a different reason. His superiors wanted him to observe the humans. Humans were new to the galactic community. They had only made first contact with other species 80 years ago. That was nothing compared to the thousands of years most species had been traveling the stars. Yet in those 80 short years, humans had spread across dozens of worlds. They built colonies faster than anyone expected. They traded aggressively. They asked too many questions. They made other species uncomfortable. The Quilarian Coalition wanted to know if humans were a threat. "Welcome to Station Kepler," a voice spoke in the common galactic language. Velthar turned to see a human approaching. The creature walked on only 2 legs. It was strange to watch. Humans always looked like they were about to fall over. "I am Commander Hyun," the human said. He extended one of his hands. Velthar knew this was a human greeting. He reached out one of his own limbs and touched the human's palm briefly. The human's skin was warm, warmer than Velthar expected. "I am Velthar of Quilar Prime," he responded. "Thank you for allowing me to stay on your station." "Our station," Hyun corrected gently. "This is a joint facility. Humans, Quilarians, Vexians, Tellurians, and a few others all work here together. You are as welcome here as anyone else." Velthar noticed something then. When he focused his empathic senses on the human, he felt a strange calmness. Most species radiated their emotions clearly: fear, joy, anger, curiosity. But this human felt like still water. There were emotions there, but they ran deep below the surface. Hyun led Velthar through the station. They passed through corridors filled with equipment and monitoring stations. Other humans worked at various posts. They all nodded or waved as their commander passed. They seemed relaxed and friendly. "This is Mina, our chief science officer," Hyun said, stopping at a large laboratory. A human female looked up from a microscope. Her face split into a wide smile. Velthar knew that showing teeth was a friendly gesture for humans, though many species found it threatening. "Oh, wonderful. A Quilarian," Mina said excitedly. She walked over quickly. "I have read so much about your people. Your biology is fascinating. The way your nervous system processes empathic information is remarkable. Do you mind if I ask you some questions later?" Velthar felt overwhelmed by her enthusiasm. Yes, that would be acceptable." "Mina studies xenobiology," Hyun explained. "She likes to learn about other species." "I love learning about other species," Mina corrected. "Every species is like a puzzle. Each one solved the problem of survival in a different way. Humans evolved from apes on a planet with many predators. Quilarians evolved from hive insects on a peaceful world. These different paths created different strengths. It is beautiful, really." Velthar found himself liking this human. Her curiosity felt genuine. But there was something else he sensed beneath her friendliness. Something patient and watchful. They continued the tour. Velthar met Daehyun, the security officer. He was a quiet human who seemed to observe everything. His eyes moved constantly, tracking movement and marking exits. Velthar's empathic sense picked up a coiled readiness in this one. Like a spring compressed and waiting, Jisoo was the medical officer. She was warm and welcoming, immediately asking Velthar about his dietary needs and medical requirements. "We want you to be comfortable here," she said. "If you need anything, just ask." Over the next few days, Velthar settled into a routine. He observed the humans carefully. They seemed unremarkable in many ways. They were not the strongest species. The Kresh were much larger and more powerful. They were not the smartest. The Tellurians had superior cognitive processing. They were not the longest lived. The Vexians could live for 3 centuries while humans barely managed one, yet there was something about them that made Velthar uneasy. He noticed how they joked about dangerous things. Once he heard 2 human engineers laughing about a near explosion in the power core. "Remember when that plasma conduit almost vented into the lab?" one said. "Yeah," the other replied. "That would have been a bad day." A bad day? It would have killed them both instantly. Why did they laugh about it? He noticed how they worked. Humans seemed to need less sleep than most species. They would push themselves for long hours, running on what they called coffee and determination. When a problem appeared, they did not wait for the proper authorities to solve it. They just started fixing it themselves. He noticed how they moved. Even the scientists had a certain physical grace. They could adapt quickly to different gravity levels. Their hands were incredibly dexterous, able to manipulate small objects with precision, and they had stamina. Velthar watched a human named Junho work on repairing equipment for 12 hours straight, only stopping for brief food breaks. Most interesting were their eyes. Human eyes faced forward, predator eyes, eyes meant for tracking and hunting. Most civilized species had eyes on the sides of their heads, better for watching for danger. But humans had evolved to be the danger. One evening, Velthar found himself in the station's common area with several humans. They were relaxing after their shifts. Mina was there along with Dahyun and a pilot named Bogum. "So what do you think of us so far?" Bogum asked. He was drinking something that smelled terrible. "Humans called it beer. You are different from what I expected," Velthar admitted. "Different how?" Mina asked. Velthar chose his words carefully. "You seem very casual about danger." The humans exchanged looks. Dahyun spoke for the first time that evening. His voice was quiet but firm. "Life is dangerous. The universe does not care if we live or die, so we learn to laugh at the danger. It is better than being afraid all the time." "But does that not seem reckless?" Velthar asked. "Maybe," Mina said, "but humans had to be a little reckless to survive. Our homeworld was not easy. We had predators that hunted us. We had diseases. We had famines and floods and fires. We survived not because we were the strongest or the fastest. We survived because we refused to give up. We adapted. We learned. We kept going even when things seemed hopeless." Velthar felt a chill run through his body. There was something in her voice when she said those words. Something ancient and stubborn. That night, as Velthar prepared his first report for his superiors, he struggled with what to write. The humans were friendly. They were cooperative. They followed all protocols. They seemed to fit well into galactic civilization. But underneath that friendly surface, Velthar sensed something else. Something that made his instincts whisper warnings. These humans were not like other species. They carried something inside them. Something that had been forged in the brutal fires of their evolution. He did not know what to call it yet. He would learn soon enough. The next morning, the station's alarms began to wail. An unidentified ship was approaching through the nebula. Velthar felt a spike of fear from the crew members around him. But when he looked at the humans, he saw something different. They were not afraid. They were ready. The alarm cut through the station like a knife. Velthar felt his body lock up in fear. His species had evolved to freeze when danger came. It was an old instinct, one that his people had mostly overcome through civilization. But in moments of true panic, the ancient response still took hold. All around him, the other non-human crew members were reacting similarly. A Vexian researcher dropped the sample he was holding. A Tellurian engineer began clicking his mandibles rapidly, a sign of extreme distress. Everyone was afraid. Everyone except the humans. Velthar watched as Commander Hyon stepped into the control center. The human's face was calm. His movements were smooth and purposeful. He walked to the main console and pressed several buttons. The alarm stopped wailing, replaced by a quieter warning tone. "Status report," Hyun said. A human named Sora looked up from her communication station. "We have a vessel approaching from bearing 273. Configuration matches Kresh Dominion Raider class. They are not responding to our hails." Velthar felt ice in his blood. The Kresh Dominion. Everyone in the galaxy knew about them. They were a militaristic empire that had built their power through conquest and slavery. They raided research stations and remote colonies. They took prisoners and sold them. They killed anyone who resisted. The proper response was to surrender immediately. That was what the Galactic Council recommended. Give them what they want. Lives were more valuable than property or pride. It was the civilized approach. How long until they reach us? Hyun asked. 20 minutes at current speed, Sora replied. Send a priority distress signal to the nearest Galactic Council patrol, Hyun ordered. Full encryption. Then begin evacuation protocols for all non-essential personnel. Velthar felt a small surge of relief. Good. They would evacuate. They would escape. The creche could have the station. Material things could be replaced. But then Hyun said something that made no sense. Daehyun, prep the armory. Junho, I need you to reinforce the blast doors in sections 3 through 7. Bogum, get to the hangar and prep the shuttle for combat flight patterns. Mina, help move the civilians to the secure shelter. Jisoo, set up triage in Medical Bay 2. Velthar stared. Commander Hyun, he said carefully. What are you doing? Hyun turned to look at him. Those forward-facing predator eyes focused entirely on Velthar. We are preparing to defend the station, but that is not wise, Velthar said. He tried to keep his voice steady. The creche are much stronger. They have weapons. They have trained soldiers. This is a research station. We should surrender. We should negotiate. No, Hyun said simply. The word hung in the air like a physical thing. No, Velthar repeated. They have already decided to attack us, Hyun explained. His voice was patient, like a teacher explaining something to a student. They are not responding to communications. They are approaching a civilian research station with weapons ready. They have made their choice. We cannot negotiate with someone who has already decided to hurt us. But we will die, Velthar said. He felt panic rising in his chest. The civilized response is to preserve life. We surrender. We give them what they want. We survive. Mina had entered the room during this conversation. She walked over to Velthar and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Even through his fear, Velthar noticed how steady her hand was. We do not think like that, Mina said softly. I know it seems strange to you, but humans learned something very important during our evolution. If you show a predator that you are easy prey, it will keep hunting you. If you fight back, even if you might lose, sometimes the predator decides you are not worth the trouble. Sometimes they go looking for easier targets. And sometimes we win, Daehyun added. He had appeared with a case of weapons. Velthar recognized plasma rifles and shock batons. You are arming yourselves? Velthar could not believe what he was seeing. This is a civilian station. We are scientists and diplomats. We are not soldiers. Daehyun looked at him with those calm, dead-serious eyes. We are humans. That is enough. The creche vessel continued to approach. Velthar watched on the monitors as it grew larger. It was a warship designed for exactly this kind of raid. It carried boarding teams and heavy weapons. Against it, the research station had minimal shields and no weapons at all. The other alien crew members gathered in the control center. There were 3 Vexians, 2 Tellurians, and a Rothian elder named Kelvin. They all looked to Velthar as the diplomatic representative. We must convince them to surrender, Kelvin said. His voice wavered with age and fear. This is madness. The humans will get us all killed. Velthar approached Hyun again. Please, Commander. The others are afraid. We should at least try to negotiate. Hyun turned from the console. For the first time, Velthar saw something flicker in those calm eyes. It was not anger exactly. It was something colder. I will not stop you from trying, Hyun said. But know this. If the creche board this station, they will not negotiate. They will take prisoners. They will enslave your people. They will torture anyone who has information they want. And they will kill anyone they consider useless. That is what they do. That is who they are. I have read the reports. I have seen the evidence. So no, we will not surrender. We will fight. And you can either help us or hide in the shelter until it is over. The words were not spoken with heat or passion. They were simply facts delivered in a steady voice. Somehow that made them more terrifying. Mina gently guided Velthar and the other aliens toward the shelter. It was a reinforced section deep in the station's core. You will be safe here, she said. The walls are thick. The door is strong. Just stay inside until we tell you it is clear. What if you lose? Velthar asked. Mina smiled. It was not her usual bright, curious smile. This smile was thin and sharp. Then you should hope the creche kill you quickly because slavery is worse. She left them there. The door sealed with a heavy thunk. Inside the shelter, the other aliens huddled together. A Vexian named Telros was praying to his gods. Kelvin was rocking back and forth. The Tellurians were clicking their mandibles in distress patterns, but the shelter had monitors. They could see the security feeds from around the station. Velthar could not help but watch. He watched as Junho finished reinforcing the blast doors. The engineer worked with incredible speed, his hands moving with practiced precision. Then Junho did something unexpected. He rigged several sections with what looked like explosive charges. He watched as Daehyun distributed weapons to the humans. Each one took their weapon with a familiarity that surprised Velthar. Even Mina, the enthusiastic scientist, handled the plasma rifle like she had used one before. He watched as Jisoo prepared the medical bay. She laid out supplies for treating burns, trauma, and decompression injuries. Her hands were steady, but her face was grim. He watched as Bogum climbed into the station's small shuttle. The pilot ran through pre-flight checks faster than Velthar thought possible. And he watched as Hyun stood in the control center, monitoring everything. The commander touched his ear, speaking into a communication device. All teams check in. One by one, the human voices responded. Engineering ready. Medical ready. Hangar ready. Security ready. Hyun nodded. Remember, they want to board us and take prisoners. They think we are an easy target. Let us teach them differently. Protect each other. Protect the civilians. And come back alive. That is an order. The crash vessel was very close now. Velthar could see it clearly on the monitors. It was massive compared to the station. Its weapons ports glowed with ready energy. Then something happened that Velthar did not expect. The humans stopped talking. They stopped joking. They stopped smiling. Every human on those monitors became very still, very focused, very quiet. Velthar had seen predators before. His homeworld had some small ones, animals that hunted in the forests. When they were stalking prey, they became completely silent. Every muscle coiled and ready, every sense focused on the target. The humans looked like that now. The crash vessel opened fire. The station shuddered as energy weapons struck the shields. Alarms blared. Lights flickered. The shields held but barely. They would not survive another volley like that. Here they come, Hyun said quietly. His voice was carried through the intercom to all sections of the station. Remember your training. Trust each other. And show them why you do not mess with humans. The crash vessel latched onto the station with magnetic clamps. Cutting torches began slicing through the hull. Boarding teams would be coming through in moments. Velthar felt his heart racing. He wanted to close his eyes. He wanted to hide, but he could not stop watching. The first crash soldiers came through the breach. They were huge creatures, twice the size of a human. They wore heavy armor and carried weapons that could punch through walls. There were 12 of them in the first wave. They entered Corridor B7, weapons raised, expecting easy targets. What they found instead was something they did not expect: humans. The crash soldiers moved through the breach in Corridor B7 with confidence. They were raiders. They had done this hundreds of times before. Research stations always fell quickly. The scientists and diplomats aboard them had no weapons, no training, and no will to fight. It was always easy. Velthar watched through the security feed. His body was frozen in fear, but his eyes could not look away. The crash were massive. Their armor was thick. Their weapons could kill in seconds. They moved in formation, covering each other's angles like professional soldiers. Then the lights went out. The corridor plunged into darkness. Velthar heard the Kresh commander bark orders in their harsh language. They activated lights on their helmets. Beams of white light cut through the dark. Something moved in the shadows. It happened so fast that Velthar almost missed it. One of the Kresh soldiers at the rear of the group simply disappeared. There was a brief scuffle, a muffled sound, and then nothing. The other Kresh did not even notice at first. Then another soldier vanished. This time the Kresh commander saw. He shouted warnings. The soldiers formed a tight circle, their lights sweeping the darkness. "Show yourselves," the commander roared in the common galactic language. "Surrender and you might live." A voice answered from the darkness. It was Daehyun. His voice was calm and cold. "No, you surrender and we might let you leave." The Kresh commander laughed. "Foolish humans. You cannot win. We are the Kresh Dominion. We have conquered 100 worlds. You are just prey." "Everyone is prey to someone," Daehyun replied. "The question is who is hunting who." The lights went out again. This time all of them, even the crash helmet lights, died. Junio had cut the power and used an electromagnetic pulse to disable their equipment. Belthar could barely see anything on the monitor now. The feed switched to thermal imaging. He could see the heat signatures of the Kresh soldiers huddled together in the dark, and he could see other shapes moving around them. Human shapes. The humans were not huddling. They were circling. The Kresh opened fire blindly. Energy bolts lit up the corridor in brief flashes. Belthar saw the walls scorched and melted. But the humans were not where the Kresh were shooting. They had already moved. Then the humans attacked. Belthar had never seen anything like it. The humans did not fight like civilized soldiers. They did not stand and shoot. They moved like the predators they had evolved from. They came from above, dropping from maintenance shafts. They came from below, emerging from floor panels. They struck fast and then disappeared back into the darkness. The Kresh were strong and armored, but they were fighting an enemy they could not see. Every time they turned to face one threat, another attacked from a different direction. The humans used the station itself as a weapon. They knew every corridor, every vent, every hiding spot. Daehyun moved through the chaos like a ghost. Belthar watched his heat signature on the monitor. The human security officer was impossibly fast. He would appear, strike with brutal efficiency, and vanish before the Kresh could react. He did not waste movements. Every action had a purpose. Within 5 minutes, half the Kresh boarding team was down. The survivors were panicking. They were shouting at each other, firing at shadows. They had gone from confident raiders to frightened prey. The Kresh commander tried to retreat. He ordered his remaining soldiers back to the breach. But when they reached it, they found that Junho had sealed it with a welded blast door. They were trapped. "Let us out," the commander shouted into the darkness. "Let us return to our ship." Hyun's voice came over the speakers. It was still calm, still measured. "You came here to hurt people, to take prisoners, to steal our research. Did you think there would be no consequences? We will destroy this station," the commander threatened. "Our ship has weapons that can tear this place apart." "Then do it," Hyun replied. "But your soldiers are still inside. If you fire on us, you kill them too. Are you willing to do that?" There was a long silence. While this was happening, a second Kresh team had breached another section of the station. They were in the engineering level. Belthar switched the monitor to watch that feed. This team was larger. 20 soldiers. They had learned from the first team's mistake. They kept their lights on. They stayed together. They advanced slowly and carefully, but humans adapted quickly. If the Kresh wanted light, the humans would give them light. Too much light. Junho had rigged the engineering section with plasma conduits. When the Kresh team reached the center of the room, he overloaded them all at once. Brilliant blue-white light flooded the space. The Kresh were blinded. Their helmet visors automatically darkened to protect their eyes, but that meant they could not see. And while they were blind, the humans attacked. Mina was there. The friendly scientist who loved learning about other species. Belthar watched as she moved with trained precision. She did not hesitate. She did not show mercy. She fired her weapon with calm accuracy, targeting weak points in the Kresh armor. Beside her was a human named Yoonji. She was a xenobiologist. She studied alien life forms, and that knowledge made her dangerous. She knew exactly where to aim. She knew which species had vulnerable joints, which ones had sensitive sensory organs. She used her scientific knowledge like a weapon. The Kresh tried to fight back, but they were disorganized. The light had blinded them. The sudden attack had scattered them, and the humans were relentless. Belthar realized something terrible as he watched. These humans were not soldiers. They were scientists, engineers, medical officers. This was not their primary job. Fighting was something they did when they had to. And yet they were winning. What would actual human soldiers be like? A third breach opened near the hangar. The Kresh were trying a different approach. They sent a small team to capture the station's shuttle. If they could take it, they could use it to evacuate or to attack from inside the station. But Bogum was waiting in the hangar. The pilot had not been idle. He had positioned the shuttle for a clear shot at the breach point. When the Kresh came through, he opened fire with the shuttle's weapons at point-blank range. The hangar became a storm of fire and metal. Kresh soldiers scattered, trying to find cover, but there was no cover. Bogum knew every centimeter of that hangar. He knew the angles. He knew where they would run, and he was merciless. The shuttle's weapons were meant for space combat, not for use inside a station. They were too powerful. Each shot that missed the crash tore into walls and equipment. But Bogum did not care about the damage. He cared about stopping the enemy. Velthar felt sick. He felt terrified. But most of all, he felt confused. These humans had been so friendly, so welcoming. They had joked and laughed and shared meals with him. How could they transform into these efficient killers? Then he remembered what Mina had said. If you show a predator you are easy prey, it will keep hunting you. Humans had learned to fight back. On the monitor, Velthar saw the first Kresh team finally surrender. They threw down their weapons. They were beaten, afraid, trapped in the darkness with humans they could not see. Daehyun and his team secured them quickly. They bound the prisoners and dragged them to a holding area. The humans were not gentle, but they were not cruel either. They were simply efficient. The second team in engineering was falling apart. Half of them were down. The rest were trying to retreat, but every exit was blocked. Huno had sealed them in. They were trapped just like the first team. Mina's voice came over the team communication channel. Velthar could hear it through the monitor's audio. Engineering team, hold position. Let them panic. Frightened enemies make mistakes. She was right. The remaining Kresh soldiers were making mistakes. They were bunching together. They were wasting ammunition. They were shouting at each other. When they finally surrendered, there were only 8 of them left. The third team in the hangar had it worst. Bogum had not given them a chance to surrender. He had simply destroyed them. The few survivors were wounded and barely conscious. Jisoo arrived with a medical team to treat them. Even after everything, the humans provided medical care to their enemies. Velthar did not understand this. Why help those who tried to hurt you? But Jisoo explained it to her team. We fight when we must. We kill when we must. But we do not torture. We do not execute prisoners. We are not monsters. We are humans. On the Kresh vessel, the commander was furious. He had sent 3 boarding teams. All 3 had failed. He had lost almost 30 soldiers. To a research station. To civilians, it was impossible. It was humiliating. He decided to change tactics. If he could not take the station by boarding it, he would destroy it. His weapons charged up. Energy buildup showed clearly on the station's sensors. Hyun's voice came over the intercom. He was not speaking to his crew. He was speaking to the Kresh commander directly. If you fire on this station, you will kill your own soldiers. We have them as prisoners. Their fate is in your hands. The Kresh commander hesitated. His own troops were inside. If he fired, he would kill them all. But more than that, something else made him hesitate. Something in the human's voice. Not fear, not desperation, just a calm certainty. These humans had defeated 3 boarding teams. What else were they capable of? And in that moment of hesitation, Bogum launched the shuttle. The small craft shot out of the hangar at full speed. It was not fleeing. It was attacking. The shuttle was tiny compared to the Kresh warship. The shelter door opened with a hiss. Velthar stepped out on shaking legs. The other aliens followed him slowly, carefully, like prey animals checking if a predator had truly left. The station corridor looked like a battlefield. Scorch marks covered the walls. Several panels hung loose, sparking occasionally. The smell of burned metal and ozone filled the air. But the fighting was over. The Kresh were gone. Velthar walked through the corridors in a daze. His mind was still processing what he had witnessed. Around him, humans were already starting repairs. Yunyo was sealing a hull breach. Another engineer was rerouting power. They worked with the same calm efficiency they had shown during the battle. It was like nothing had happened. No, that was not right. Something had happened, something terrible and violent. But the humans were simply moving forward to the next task. Velthar heard a sound and turned. It was Daehyun. The security officer was walking down the corridor. His uniform was torn. There was blood on his hands. Not his blood, Velthar realized. The blood of the enemies he had fought. Daehyun saw Velthar and stopped. For a moment, the two of them just looked at each other. Velthar felt fear spike through his body. This human had moved through darkness like death itself. He had taken down trained soldiers without hesitation. But then something changed in Daehyun's face. The hard, focused look faded. His shoulders relaxed slightly. His eyes softened. "It is over," Daehyun said quietly. "You are safe." He walked past Velthar, heading toward the security office. His movements were no longer those of a predator. He moved like a tired worker at the end of a long shift. Velthar felt confused. How could Daehyun switch so quickly? From killer to guardian? How could humans contain both things inside them? The medical bay was chaos. Jisoo and her team were working frantically. Most of their patients were the captured Kresh soldiers. The humans were treating their enemies' wounds with the same care they would give their own people. But in one corner, separated by a privacy screen, Velthar saw something that made his heart ache. 3 humans lay on tables. They were completely still. White sheets covered their bodies. Dead. 3 humans had died defending the station. Jisoo was standing beside one of the covered bodies. Her hands were covered in blood. Her face was streaked with tears. She was not moving. She was just standing there, staring at the sheet. A male nurse named Taemin approached her carefully. "Dr. Jisoo," he said gently, "we need you. There are still injured who need treatment." "I could not save them," Jisoo whispered. Her voice was broken. I tried so hard, but I could not save them." "I know," Taemin said, "but you saved 11 others. They are alive because of you, and there are still patients who need you now." Jisoo nodded slowly. She wiped her face. She took a deep breath. Then she turned and went back to work. Her hands were steady again, but Velthar could see the pain in her eyes. He realized something then. The humans felt everything. They felt fear. They felt pain. They felt grief. But they did not let those feelings stop them. They pushed through. They kept working. They kept fighting. They kept living. How did they bear it? Velthar found Mina in the science lab. She was carefully storing samples that had been knocked over during the battle. Her movements were precise and practiced. But when Velthar entered, he noticed her hands were shaking slightly. "Are you injured?" Velthar asked. Mina shook her head. "No, just the adrenaline wearing off. It happens after combat. The body floods with chemicals during a fight. Afterwards, you crash." "You have fought before," Velthar said. It was not a question. "I was in the Colonial Defense Force before I became a scientist," Mina explained. She carefully placed a sample in storage. "Most humans serve some kind of military or defense role when we are young. It is expected. Our worlds are on the frontier. We have to be able to protect ourselves." "So you are all soldiers," Velthar said. "No," Mina corrected. "We are all survivors. There is a difference. A soldier's job is to fight. A survivor's job is to live. We fight when we must, but we would prefer not to." She finally looked at Velthar. Her eyes were red. She had been crying, he realized. But she had not cried in front of her team. She had waited until she was alone. "I killed people today," Mina said softly. "I ended lives. I know they were trying to hurt us. I know we had no choice. But that does not make it easy. It does not make it okay. I will remember their faces. I will carry that weight forever." "Then why did you do it?" Velthar asked. "Because the alternative was worse," Mina said. "If we had surrendered, people would have died anyway. They would have enslaved the survivors. Sometimes there are only bad choices, so you pick the least bad one and live with the consequences." Velthar heard shouting from another corridor. He hurried toward the sound, his body tense with fresh fear. Had more Kresh come? But it was not enemies. It was Junho. The engineer was in a storage room. He had his back against the wall. He was sliding down to the floor. And he was crying. Deep, racking sobs that shook his entire body. Yoonji was there with him. She knelt beside him and put her arms around him. She did not say anything. She just held him while he cried. "I almost got them killed," Junho gasped between sobs. "When I rigged those explosives. If I had miscalculated, if the blast had been too strong, I could have killed our own people. But you did not," Yoonji said firmly. "You calculated perfectly. Everyone came home. Well, not everyone." Her voice broke slightly. "But you did your job. You protected us. People died today," Junho said. "Our people. Because I did not make the station secure enough. Because my defenses failed." "No," Yoonji said. "People died because the Kresh attacked us. Not because of you. You saved lives today. You saved mine. You saved everyone in engineering." Velthar backed away quietly. He felt like he was intruding on something private. But now he understood something important. The humans were not emotionless killers. They felt everything. probably more deeply than his own people, but they did what needed to be done anyway. They carried the weight of their actions. They mourned their losses, but they did not let it break them. He found Commander Hyun in the control center. The commander was standing alone looking at a display. It showed the names and pictures of the 3 dead humans. Corporal Minho Kim. Hyun read quietly. Age 26. Joined the station 6 months ago. Loved rock climbing and terrible jokes. He once spent 3 hours trying to teach me to play a human game called chess. Hyun touched the next picture. Lieutenant Jiwon Park, age 31. Our communications specialist. She was engaged to be married next year. She had already picked out the dress. He touched the 3rd picture. His hand trembled slightly. Dr. Hana Song, age 29. She was Jisoo's best friend since medical school. She was trying to save one of the wounded when a Kresh soldier shot her. Hyun was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke again, his voice rough with emotion. They died protecting people they barely knew. Aliens from other worlds who they had no obligation to protect. They died because that is what humans do. We protect those who cannot protect themselves, even when it costs us everything. I do not understand, Velthar said. Why do you care so much? Why risk your lives for others? Hyun turned to look at him. There were tears in the commander's eyes, but his voice was steady. Because we remember what it was like to be prey, Hyun said. Our ancestors were hunted by animals stronger and faster than us. We survived because we learned to work together. To protect each other. That instinct runs deep in us. When we see someone in danger, we do not calculate the odds. We do not wonder if it is worth the risk. We just act. Because that is who we are. He looked back at the display. But it costs us. Every time. We carry the weight of every person we could not save. We remember every face. We grieve every loss. That is the price of being human. We feel everything. And we keep going anyway. Velthar felt something shift inside him. His fear of humans was still there. But now it was mixed with something else, respect, admiration, and deep, profound sympathy. These humans were not monsters. They were people who had learned to be monsters when necessary. But they paid a terrible price for it. Over the next few days, Velthar watched the humans closely. He saw them hold a ceremony for the dead. They spoke about each person who had fallen. They told stories. They cried together. They supported each other. He saw them treat the Kresh prisoners with dignity. They gave them food and medical care. They did not torture or humiliate them. When a Galactic Council patrol finally arrived to take the prisoners, the Kresh soldiers were healthy and alive. One of the Kresh soldiers stopped as he was being led away. He looked at Daehyun. You are not like other prey species, the soldier said. You fight like Kresh warriors. Why did you not kill us when you had the chance? Daehyun met his eyes. Because we are not like you. We fight to survive. You fight to conquer. There is a difference. The Kresh soldier nodded slowly. There was something in his expression that might have been respect. Or perhaps fear. Velthar finally understood what he had been sensing from the humans all along. That thing beneath their friendly surface. That ancient, patient, waiting thing. It was not evil. It was not cruelty. It was the spirit of survivors who had clawed their way up from the bottom of the food chain. It was the determination of a species that refused to be prey ever again. 2 weeks after the attack, Velthar stood in a transport ship heading toward the Galactic Council headquarters. He had been called to testify about what happened at the research station. His report had caused quite a stir among the council members. The humans had won against a Kresh raiding party. That should have been impossible. Velthar looked at the data pad in his hands. He had written his report carefully, trying to be objective. But how could he be objective about what he had witnessed? How could he put into words the terror and awe he had felt? The transport arrived at the headquarters, a massive station that orbited a neutral world. Representatives from dozens of species worked here. It was the center of galactic civilization, the place where species came together to talk instead of fight, or at least that was the idea. Velthar was escorted to a large chamber. The Galactic Council sat in a semicircle above him. Dozens of alien faces looked down, some curious, some concerned, some openly hostile. At another podium stood the Kresh ambassador. He was even larger than the soldiers Velthar had seen. His armor was decorated with marks of rank and honor. He glared at Velthar with open contempt. The Kresh Dominion demands justice, the ambassador declared. His voice boomed through the chamber. A diplomatic vessel was destroyed. Soldiers were killed. Others were captured and tortured. These humans committed acts of barbarism and war crimes. A council member from the Tellurian Confederacy spoke up. Ambassador, the records show your vessel attacked a civilian research station without provocation. We had intelligence that the station was conducting illegal weapons research, the Kresh ambassador countered. We were within our rights to investigate. By firing on the station? Another council member asked. This one was from the Vexian Unity. By sending boarding teams with lethal weapons? Standard procedure, the Kresh ambassador said dismissively. If the station had nothing to hide, they should have cooperated. Velthar felt anger rising in him. He had seen what happened. The Kresh had not come to investigate. They had come to raid and conquer. But he kept quiet. He was only a junior attaché. His turn to speak would come. The council called Commander Hyun to testify next. The human entered the chamber calmly. He wore a clean uniform. His face showed no emotion. He stood at the podium and waited. Commander Hyun, the council chairperson said. She was an elderly Quillarian, one of Velthar's own species. Please describe the events that occurred at Station Kepler. Hyun spoke clearly and simply. He described the Kresh vessel's approach. The failure to respond to communications. The attack on the station's shields. The boarding teams. The fight to defend the station. He did not exaggerate. He did not try to make the humans look heroic. He simply stated facts. Why did you not surrender? The Kresh ambassador interrupted. The civilized response is to negotiate, to preserve life. Instead, you murdered my soldiers. Hyun turned to look at the ambassador. His eyes were cold. Your soldiers came to kill or enslave everyone on that station, Hyun said. There was nothing to negotiate. You made your choice when you opened fire. We simply responded. You could have disabled them, the ambassador argued. You did not need to use lethal force. We used the minimum force necessary to defend innocent lives, Hyun replied. Many of your soldiers survived. We provided them with medical care. We treated them with dignity. That is more than your people would have done for us. The chamber erupted in argument. Some council members agreed with Hyun. Others were horrified by the humans' cold logic. The Kresh ambassador was shouting about human savagery. Finally, the chairperson called for order. She turned to Velthar. Attaché Velthar, she said. You were present during these events. You are a trained diplomatic observer and a member of our own species. You have no loyalty to either party. Please tell the council what you witnessed. Velthar stepped to the podium. His legs felt weak. Every eye in the chamber was on him. He took a deep breath and began to speak. I went to Station Kepler to observe the humans, he said. My mission was to determine if they were a threat to galactic peace. I spent several days with them before the attack. They were friendly and welcoming. They worked well with other species. They followed all protocols. He paused, gathering his thoughts. When the Kresh attacked, I expected the humans to surrender. That is what any civilized species would do. Preserve life. Avoid conflict. But the humans did not think that way. Because they are barbarians, the Kresh ambassador muttered. No, Velthar said firmly. Not barbarians, survivors. He continued speaking, his voice growing stronger. I watched the battle through security monitors. I saw how the humans fought. They were efficient. They were ruthless. They were terrifying. But they were also protective. When Kresh soldiers broke through toward the civilian shelter, human scientists put themselves between us and danger. They were willing to die to protect aliens they barely knew. Velthar looked directly at the council chairperson. I need to tell the council something important. Something I think many species do not understand about humans. They evolved as prey animals. Their world was full of predators. They should have gone extinct. But they did not. They learned to fight back. They learned to work together. They learned to use tools and strategy and determination. He glanced at Hyun, then back at the council. Humans carry that history inside them. When threatened, they do not freeze or flee. They attack. They adapt. They refuse to be victims. And yes, that makes them dangerous. But it also makes them valuable allies. Are you defending their violence? A council member asked. I am explaining it, Velthar said. Violence is not the same as evil. The Kresh came to hurt people. The humans stopped them. That is not wrong. That is justice. The Kresh ambassador slammed his fist on his podium. This is outrageous. You are supposed to be neutral. I am being neutral, Velthar said quietly. I am reporting what I saw. The Kresh attacked a civilian station. The humans defended it. Many humans were injured. 3 died. Those are facts, not opinions. He took another breath. But I must also report this. After the battle, I watched the humans closely. I saw them grieve for their dead. I saw them cry. I saw them break down in private. They are not unfeeling killers. They feel everything, perhaps more deeply than we do, but they do what must be done anyway. Velthar looked around the chamber. I was terrified of the humans during the battle. I admit that freely. I saw what they were capable of, and it frightened me. But in the days after, I also saw their compassion. They treated the captured Kresh soldiers well. They did not torture or humiliate them. They gave them medical care and food. When the patrol ship came, the prisoners were healthy. They should not have been prisoners at all, the Kresh ambassador said. They should not have attacked, Velthar countered. Everything that happened was a direct result of Kresh aggression. The humans simply defended themselves. The chamber fell silent. Council members whispered to each other. Finally, the chairperson spoke. The council will deliberate and issue a ruling. All parties will be notified. This session is adjourned. Velthar stepped down from the podium. His legs were shaking.
He had never spoken so boldly before.
He was a junior attaché. He was supposed to be quiet and observant. But he had seen something important. Something the galaxy needed to understand. Hyun approached him in the corridor outside the chamber. The human looked tired but calm. Thank you, Hyun said simply. You did not have to speak for us. I did not speak for you, Velthar replied. I spoke the truth. What the council does with that truth is up to them. Still, Hyun said, you took a risk. Your superiors might not like that you defended humans. Velthar thought about this. It was true. The Quilarian coalition was cautious about humans. They might not appreciate his testimony, but he could not change what he had said. It was the truth. 3 days later, the council issued its ruling. The humans were cleared of all charges. The evidence clearly showed that the Kresh had attacked without provocation. The human response was deemed proportionate and defensive. However, the council also imposed some restrictions. Human military vessels would be monitored more closely. Human colonies in disputed regions would be subject to regular inspections. It was a compromise. The humans were not punished, but they were watched. Velthar expected the humans to be angry about this, but Hyun just shrugged when he heard the news. It is better than we expected, the commander said. We thought they might ban us from council space entirely. Some monitoring is fine. We have nothing to hide. Does it not bother you? Velthar asked. Being watched like potential criminals? We are potential criminals, Hyun said with a slight smile. Every species is. The difference is that we admit it. We know what we are capable of. We just choose to use that capability for protection rather than conquest. Velthar had requested an extension of his stay at the station. His superiors had approved it, probably because they wanted more information about humans. But Velthar had a different reason. He wanted to understand these strange, terrifying, compassionate creatures better. One evening, he found himself in the common area again. Several humans were there. Mina was reading a book. Daehyun was quietly maintaining his equipment. Junho and Yoonji were playing some kind of board game. Bogum was telling a joke that made everyone laugh. They looked so normal, so peaceful.